Okay guys, so we are going to start our training with the SQL Server part. So under this SQL Server part, we have SQL and T-SQL. So what is the SQL Server? Any idea what exactly the SQL Server? Right, so normally you have a data, and if you want to store the data, where you can store the data? You can store the data either in a file, okay, or you can store in RDBMS systems. Okay, so what exactly a DBMS system? It's a database management system. So you have an organization and some information, not information, some data you have. So how you are going to organize this data? So definitely if you want to organize, if you want to store the data, you require either it is a files or a relational database management systems. What are the relational database management systems we have in the SQL Server? Sorry, in the market. The relational database management systems are right now in the market are SQL Server is one of the primary or DBMS system coming from the Microsoft Corporation. And another one is Oracle. So it's coming from the Oracle Corporation. And the third one is DB2. So this DB2 is coming from the IBM, right? And there are other RDBMS systems also there, MySQL, okay, Teradata. So these are the some popular RDBMS systems. Why we are calling these are RDBMS systems? Because these are the relational database management systems. You can make relationships between the tables in this system. What kind of relationships? There is an employee information and there is some department's information in a organization. So which employee is working to which department? So you can make the relationships between these two tables, right? So this can be possible in only these RDBMS systems. It's not possible in your text file or Excel file or CSV file, these kind of files. And also the way these RDBMS systems are going to store the data, are going to process the data. Whenever you want to see the data, yes, you can process the data. You can insert the data and you can select the data. So all these are is a kind of repository systems to store the information, whatever the data you have. Okay, so coming to this SQL Server. The SQL Server is a tool coming from Microsoft Corporation, and this tool was introduced in almost in 1980s. Okay, so in this SQL Server, definitely if you want to process and store and whatever the requests you are going to send to the SQL Server, what there is in the back end one database engine is there. The database engine will take care about your requests and it will process your request. If you observe normally in everywhere, if you are going to design a project, okay, so what you required? You required an application. For example, this is a banking application. They are designing this application, the front end application, with Java or .NET or anything. Okay, this is a application server. So whatever the application they are built by using the Java or .NET code, that is running under application server. And so you require a data, or whenever the user, for example, it is a registration, you have one form to register about the employees, or new customer is coming to your site. So whenever the customer is coming and is entering some information about what is the first name, what is the second name, and what is his mail ID, phone number, contact information. So those information where you are going to store. So that information I am going to store in the database server. So you can use in the backend, either it is a SQL server or Oracle or DB2, anything you can use. So this we are calling this is a database server. So everywhere 90% of the application, the structure is like this way. There are two servers. One is database server. This will take care about the completely your RDBMS systems, SQL server or Oracle, whatever. What RDBMS system you are using, so that will reside in this particular server. In the application server, whatever the application you have designed by using which language, and the customer will come and log into this application server. Whenever he is sending any request, so it will goes to the application server, and application server will send a request to the database for a particular data processing. So for this SQL server, if you are using the RDBMS system is a SQL server, in the backend there is a database engine is there. So the database engine will process whatever the requests it is getting from the application server. Okay, so right now we are going to use the Microsoft SQL Server. Right, so if you want to talk with the SQL Server, if I want to talk with you guys, there is one language in between you and me. So either we can speak in English language, either we can speak in other language. If I am speaking in French or Japanese, whatever, are you guys able to understand that language? No, because you can understand only English language. Okay, you can understand only English language. So in the same way, if you want to speak with the SQL server, you have to speak in the SQL language. There is a separate language, that is SQL language. If you are speaking in other language, you don't understand, because the SQL server knows only the language is SQL server. So that is the reason, if you want to talk with the SQL server, you have to learn this new language, structure query language. What is a SQL structure query language? Okay, so the same way for Oracle also there is some language, that also we are calling a SQL language, but there is a small differences in wording and whatever. So for example, in a particular word we are calling in Telugu and English, both are same sometimes, right? The same way in this SQL server, and if you want to speak with Oracle, if you are learning any of one, you can able to speak 90% with Oracle or SQL server, because the SQL language is 90% common for anyway. Either it is a SQL server or Oracle or DB2 or it's a MySQL, whatever. Okay, so that is the reason we have to learn the first SQL language, right? So if you are coming to this SQL Server product, the SQL Server product introduced by Microsoft Corporation when they were introduced this SQL Server. And so how many versions they have released? Version means, and how many editions they have. Simple, what is a version and what is a edition? So I'm going to purchase a car, that is Baleno. Okay, so I want to purchase a car Baleno, and so this Baleno was introduced in 2011, and 2012 there is a new version is coming in 2012, and then 2013 and 2014 and 2015, 2016. Every year they are releasing the model version. Okay, and now the new model is waiting for 2007. These are the different versions: 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And what are the additions in this Baleno? Sigma, Delta, Zeta, and Alpha. Okay, right. So in 2011, when the first time they were releasing this Baleno car, they don't have a alpha model. Okay, they don't have alpha model. They have only sigma, yes, yes, no. So after that, yes, they have all the versions. So what is the difference between this? It is a 2011 model and 2012 model, 13, 14, 15, 16. And what is this editions? These we are calling editions, and these we are calling versions. So what is the difference between the sigma, delta, delta, zeta, zeta, alpha? Yes, the sigma is a basic version, and the delta is the second level from the bottom. Like so in this sigma we don't have much options. Options in the sense, central locking we don't have, and so the power windows we don't have. But in the delta version, yes, we are getting the central locking and power windows. And what is the difference between the delta and zeta? So in the delta version we don't have alloy wheels. In the zeta version we have the alloy wheels. And what is the difference between the zeta and alpha? In alpha we have a rear cam, okay, and fog lights. So there are different options. So if you are going to this from sigma to delta, delta to zeta, zeta to alpha, we have added some options, more options. In lower version, in lower editions, we are not getting much options. Okay, the same way in the SQL Server also we have different versions and we have different editions. So each edition we are missing some options. Okay, so what are the versions we have and what are the editions we have in the SQL Server? Okay, see, so total we have these many versions. The first version they were released is SQL Server 7.0. It's almost in 1980s something. Yeah. 1980s. And the next version they were released, that is SQL Server 2000. So they are releasing with the year name. And the next one is SQL Server 2005, SQL Server 2008, and SQL Server 2008 are SQL Server 2012, 2014, and 2016. Right. So these are the different versions in the SQL Server. So right now the 99% of the projects are existing on these versions only. 2008, 2008 R2 and 2012. These three versions. Okay. See, what are the editions we have? These are the editions: Developer Edition, Standard Edition, Express Edition, Business Edition, and Enterprise Edition. So based on your requirement, for example, in this car, if you don't want central locking, then why you are going to the Delta? You can take it Sigma. The same way, in these editions also, if you don't want a particular property or options, then you can go to you can choose whatever is suitable for your business. If you are coming to this developer edition, so they will give a license for this edition based on the product, based on the developer. For a particular person they will give a license. It is not suitable for the production work. So that is the reason it will only useful for the development. In your machine you can install this one and you can develop. So it is not suitable for the production support. The production is nothing but it's a finalized data storage, and you are going to install this in the your company project server. So the next one is standard edition. So this is a basic one, standard. It's a kind of Sigma. You can compare like a Sigma version edition. Okay, and this having some basic business intelligence. What is a business intelligence? So that business intelligence is nothing but MSBA, that is SSIS, SSRS, SSAS will come into the picture. That we will discuss later. Those features you are getting in the standard edition very less. And come to the Express edition. So in this Express edition, it will support only 1 GB of the RAM, and database are limited to 10 GB for database. If your database is less than 10 GB, yes, you can go. The business standard edition, this is it's almost having the features whatever in the standard edition, but the BI, the business intelligence options are more. So the final one is the enterprise edition. This will have all the features. So that is the reason most of the clients are going to purchase this enterprise edition. Okay, as a developer you can use developer edition, standard, or express. Mostly developer and standard. So whatever the edition I have shared is an enterprise edition only. You can use this enterprise edition. Okay, so these are the different versions and editions we have in the SQL Server. Okay, when you are joining in your company, so you can check which version you are using and which edition you are using. How can you check? So directly you can go to your SQL Server Management Studio. Simply write down select at the rate of version. So if you are writing this query, then it will give which version you are using and which edition you are using. So I told already, so how many times you can install a single software in your computer? I have a computer, only one CPU. It's a Windows machine only. You can install only on Windows machine, this SQL Server. It will support only Windows. Okay, at least 5 to 6 GB space required. At least 5 to 6 GB of the space is required to install this total BI suite. SQL Server and BI like SSIS, SSRS and SSAS. Those are the three components coming under BI. So whatever the software I have shared to you guys, so in that you will get all the SQL Server and SSIS, SSRS and SSAS. Right. So in the back end for the SQL Server we are using there is a database engine will work. It will take care all about the your requests. Okay, so how you are going to interact with the SQL Server? By writing a SQL. Where you are going to write down the SQL? Definitely you require a tool, and so you are going to use for SSIS for ETL, SSRS for reporting, SSAS for OLAP. This is a ETL. This is a ETL tool. This is a reporting tool. What is ETL? To load the data from one place to another place, you can use the SSIS. What is the reporting tool? You can design the reports. So SSAS is a cube designing. It's a kind of storing the data. So all these, if you want to design, so definitely require a tool, right? So what is that tool? For the database engine and the SQL Server, you have to use SQL Server Management Studio. And here for SSIS, SSRS and SSAS is SQL Server Data Tools. In 2008 and before the 2008 R2, the name is Business Intelligence Development Studio. Okay, in 2008, before the 2008 R2, the name is Business Intelligence Development Studio. Simply we are calling this is a BITS. After 2008 R2, the name was changed into SQL Server Data Tools. So whatever the software I have shared to you, you can install 32 times on your computer. Same software, but each time whenever you are going to install, you have to give the different installation name that we are calling it's a instance name. For example, first time when you are installing, it will take the default name as MS SQL Server. This is the default instance name. What about the second one? If you are installing the second time, you can give any name. You can give Ram. You can give your name. So each time for each installation, you have to give a different name. So whatever the name you have given here, we are calling this is a named instance. So you can give 31 named instances and one default instance. I don't want to install more than one time. So when you are installing more than one time, you will get SQL Server 32 times. If you are installing 32 times, you will get SSRS. It's a reporting tool. SQL Server reporting tool. So you will get how many times? Sorry, SQL Server reporting services. That is nothing but SSRS. You will get 32 times. Yes. For SSAS, SQL Server Analysis Services, you will get 32 times. But the SQL Server Integration Services, you will get only one time. The service is only one time it will install. Okay, this is a DBA kind of things, but you have to know about all these things. These versions, editions, and this installation. The database administrators will take care about all these things. You don't worry about this. Okay, so after you are installing the software, you will get these two tools. SQL Server Management Studio. This is for pure writing the SQL commands and interacting with the database. And the second one is SQL Server Data Tools. Okay, so these are the two tools we are going to use to work on this Microsoft BI suite. So right now we are going to use this Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Just click on the SQL Server Management Studio. So when we are installing the software, the instance name we are giving in the installation time, and there are authentication types. There are two kind of authentication type. One is Windows authentication. The second one is SQL Server authentication. Authentication is nothing but it will check before you are going to log into the SQL Server whether you are the trusted connection or not. So through the Windows, two ways you can log in. Windows authentication means whatever the Windows username password you are using to log into this computer, the same thing it will use to log in. At the time of installation, you are going to enter your Windows username, then it will automatically allows to you to log into the SQL Server. SQL Server authentication means you can create many number of SQL Server authentications. By default, at the time of installation, the username is SA and the password you have to enter at the time of installation. Just come over here. Here you have to give the server name. If you are installing this SQL Server in your local computer, so you can give your computer name. Okay, you can use your computer name. If you don't know your computer name, just give dot. So there are two kind of authentication, SQL Server authentication and Windows authentication. If you are taking Windows authentication, it will take your username automatically. SQL Server authentication, the first time when you are going to log in, you have to enter the username as SA and the password, whatever you have given at the time of installation, the same password you have to give. Okay, so this is about the introduction of the SQL Server.